mundo y bienvenido a mi canal. Yo me llamo Sirey. Soy una abogada afrolatina licenciada practicando la ley criminal, pero como todos ustedes, a mí me fascina cuando estamos hablando de casos de crímenes reales. En este video vamos a... Espérate. Vamos a hablar de Karmelo Anthony, pero también vamos a hablar de Cayson Allison. Si quieren más video en español, nada más dime allá abajo. Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Desiree. I'm a licensed and practicing Afro-Latina criminal attorney who, much like the rest of you, has a severe fascination with true crime cases. Listen. Okay, you guys. So first things first, your girl's nails are done. Do you see these? Do you see the shimmer and the glitter on these? You guys might be thinking to yourselves, well, I just watched a video of you like last week or something and your nails were already done. So did you get them done in the last video? But I think I've told you guys that I pre-record a lot of my videos. So in one setting, I'll record anywhere from 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 videos and I'll edit those and upload those. So you guys always have content from me, right? So this is the first video that you've seen from me with my nails done post the last Karmelo video that we did. Okay. Second, before we get into the video at hand, I want to address some things that came to my attention relatively recently. If you guys will just bear with me, just a smidge. The first thing I want to address is the fact that I noticed that a lot of, I guess, let's say new supporters, new subscribers mentioned that they appreciated the fact that I kept race out of the Karmelo Anthony case. And while I appreciate your support and I welcome you to my channel, I am here to let you know that I will always discuss race when race is important. I think it is damaging to not talk about race at all. I think to pretend that racism in America doesn't exist is ridiculous. I mean, and if that's your opinion, that's your opinion, but that is not mine, okay? What I was saying in the Karmelo Anthony video is that in my opinion, race did not play a factor in that case, that specific case. As I said to you guys in that video, in my opinion, everyone was trying to portray Karmelo Anthony as this thug, this gangster, this dude that was out for blood. And I could not see things any differently. Karmelo was a good kid, period. Austin was a good kid, period. There was no information that I became apprised of throughout my studying of that case that led me to believe that Karmelo stabbed Austin because he was white, nor that Austin walked up to Karmelo because he was black. That was not a race case in my view, okay? But again, when race plays an important factor in a case, I will mention it to you. And also, like I said to you guys in the last video, whenever there are two people of two different races, it's almost inevitable that race will become a factor, in that even though race is not a factor or a motive in the underlying offense, everyone looks at people and sees color. Like, I literally hate when people tell me they don't see color. We all see color, okay? We all see color. You don't see color, what do you do at a stoplight? We see color. Everyone sees color. Everyone sees color. You look at me and you see a black woman until I tell you that I'm Afro-Latina. And then you're like, oh, she's black and Hispanic. But you see a black woman. It is what it is. It is what it is. Let's be honest. Because I think trying to fight our intuition is damaging. Okay. Third. Is this third? Second. Whatever number I'm on, y'all. Ciao. Anyways, I saw another. Oh, wait, hold on. Before I go there. Just to further reiterate my point about race and race being a factor in a lot of things, I received a comment from an idiot whose username was the gullible moron or gullible moron. And that username could not be any more accurate. This idiot left me a comment that said something to the effect of, when I see a black lawyer, I have no expectation of greatness. And in case you guys think I'm rage baiting or just pointing this out for clicks, views, and likes, I'm gonna put the comment right here. You can see it right here. I'm gonna leave it up a few more seconds. You can read it right here. That's what they said. Now, I'm not gonna pay the gullible moron any more attention other than providing you guys the comment, letting you know that people see race and people have stereotypes regardless, right? Let's pay him dust because he is dust. A dusty, a dust ball, a dust bucket, dust under my shoe. Like, please. Anyways, let's carry on. Another thing that I want to talk to you guys about is the fact that you guys seem to really be confused on what an Afro-Latina is. It's really not that confusing. I'm black and Hispanic, period. I didn't think it was that hard to comprehend. I am a black Hispanic, period. I'm black and Hispanic, period. To further reiterate my point, because there's millions of us. I don't know how this is a new concept to you guys, but apparently it is. There's millions of us. So to further reiterate my point, let me introduce you, or maybe reintroduce you, to some wonderful, beautiful Afrolatinos. If you guys are familiar with baseball or you watch baseball, you'll know that Big Papi Ortiz, or David Ortiz, is an Afro-Latino. He is Dominican and Black. Oh my God, wow. Let's talk about someone else. Let's talk about another Afro-Latina. Her name is Amara La Negra. And Amara is Black and Dominican. Oh my God, would you look at that? And you know what? This discussion about Afro-Latinos would not be complete without one of the most famous Afro-Latinas in the history of the world. And her name was Celia Cruz. Celia Cruz, La Reina del Tumbao, was Afro-Cuban, Black and Cuban. I mean, it's really not that hard to comprehend if you use your mind, like if you use your brain, the thing up here, instead of trying to like be rude and racist and ignorant. But let's carry on into the case. Enough reading you guys for filth. Okay, you guys, so I will be honest and let you guys know that I had not previously heard of the case of Cayson Allison until the verdict came out in Carmelo Anthony's case. And that might be giving a delayed timeline. Let me think. I think it's better to say I had not heard about Cayson Allison's case until the Carmelo Anthony case. I didn't even know this case existed. And the reason I think that's important is just so we can talk about the different media coverages surrounding different cases, right? Both of these cases occurred in Texas. Okay. So that's why I think it's an important comparison, because as I've told you guys numerous times, different jurisdictions do things differently. Okay. So the fact that both of these cases happened in Texas, in my mind, is very important. The second thing that's really important is that both of these cases happened in high school. The defendants in both of these cases were in high school when these incidents occurred. So that's another distinction that I find to be very, very, very important. The third distinction that I find to be super, super crucial is that both of these cases happened with the victims being killed via stabbing. Okay. So I think that's another thing that's super, 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 super important. Both defendants killed their victims with knives. That's important. I'm going to say it again. Both defendants killed their victims with knives. I think that's crucial. Now, why do I believe that we didn't get as much coverage from the Cayson Allison case as we got with Carmelo Anthony? Let's be honest. Cayson Allison is a white boy, or white man now, because he's over the age of 18. And the victim in Cayson Allison's case was a Hispanic boy. Okay. I'm not saying that the media doesn't sensationalize cases where people are of different races, but I'm saying that this is a pretty good example in my mind of why a lot of people feel like specific cases get specific attention. Okay. Now, let's go back. No one chooses their race. No one chooses their race. I'm not saying that it's Cayson's fault that he's white, nor is it the victim's fault that he's Hispanic. What I am saying, though, is this was another case that happened in Texas, virtually via relatively similar mediums and methods, that was damn near not even covered at all. Now, another thing that I found really, really interesting about Cayson's case is that from my studying of the case, although there are some distinctions within the two cases, comparing Carmelo's case to Cayson's case, I think Cayson's case was more aggravated. Honestly, I think the jury got it wrong. I'll be 1,000% honest with you. I think that Cayson should be serving 99 years in that case, but alas, he's not. And let me just explain to you what happened in it, okay? So at the time, Cayson Allison was an 18-year-old high school student at Belton High School. I believe he was a senior at the time. And he was engaged in a fight with another high school senior who was also 18 years old at the time, named Jose Ramirez. So they're engaged in an altercation. They're inside of the men's bathroom. And while inside of the men's bathroom, Cayson stabbed Jose. He goes by Joe, so let's call him Joe. Cayson stabbed Joe to death. That is what happened. I learned a little bit more about the case that intrigued me to want to talk to you guys about it a little bit further. But yeah, that's basically the gist of it.
We are learning more about the Belton High School student who died after being stabbed at school, allegedly by another student.
Belton police identified him as 18-year-old Jose Luis Ramirez Jr., a senior at the school. He died at Baylor Scott and White Medical Center tonight from his injuries.
And 6 News anchor Bailey Bates has been following this devastating story today. She joins us live in studio now with more. Bailey?
Leslie, Chris, it was a very somber day in the Belton community. Feelings of uneasiness, confusion, and sorrow took over after the stabbing at Belton High this morning. But tonight, not every parent is getting to hold their loved one. A scary situation at Belton High School Tuesday when the school was put on lockdown for a reported stabbing.
I'm in shock because I have an older son that graduated from here in 2018, and it's always been a great school. I'm in shock.
Pamela Owen rushed to pick up her 2 kids from school after getting a text she never expected.
I got the text from my son saying they're barricaded in a room, but he's safe. So what does a mom do? We panic.
Belton ISD opened Tiger Field as a reunification center, with hundreds of parents and guardians waiting in line to get their loved ones.
I've had crazier situations at school.
Emotions were high as unanswered questions loom.
They're all right. They're a little in shock. We didn't expect something like this to happen. Who does?
Belton police say an altercation between 2 seniors happened in the men's restroom just before 10 a.m. and then 18-year-old Cayson Tyler Allison allegedly stabbed 18-year-old Jose Joe Ramirez. Ramirez died at the hospital Tuesday afternoon from the violent act.
He know how to make you crack a smile, know how to crack a joke, know how to make you laugh. Regardless of anything, he was always there for you. And it's really who Joe was. He was always that person that even when you didn't see him, you knew he was there.
Tuesday evening, Martin Martinez and other friends and family gathered to remember their friend. Lots of tears shed as they didn't expect to have to say goodbye this soon.
Still in shock. I think everybody's still kind of processing it, doesn't really believe it.
The sea of red, Ramirez's favorite color, will keep moving forward, honoring his life and how there was never a dull moment, and their memories will never fade. A GoFundMe has been created to help Joe's family as they grieve a young life loss. You can find that link on our website, kcntv.com. We've also known that Belton High School has canceled classes for tomorrow as the school will be closed. Chris, Leslie.
All right, thanks, Bailey. Now, Belton Mayor Wayne Carpenter released this statement today saying in part, quote, "I am deeply saddened by the tragic incident at Belton High School today and send my prayers to all of those who have been impacted by it, particularly to the young victim and his family," end quote. He went on to say, "On behalf of all Beltonians, I want all students, faculty, and staff at Belton High School and Belton ISD to know that they are in our thoughts and prayers."
Before we get into exactly what happened during the case, I'm going to compare some of the things specific to this case with some of the other things that I told you in Carmelo Anthony's case, okay? Just because I think a good learning lesson, experiment, whatever, is just doing comparison so we can see the distinctions between the 2 cases. As I told you guys, in Carmelo Anthony's case, I was astonished at how quickly the case went to trial. I remember for a fact that I said to you guys that with cases of that magnitude, it's not uncommon to see multiple different continuances. And I was really surprised that that case went on the first trial setting. Okay. So think about that. I said that. And if you want, go back and revisit the video where I said it to you in. Okay. So in Cayson Allison's case, you guys, the date of offense was May 3rd of 2022, but his trial did not start until March 31st of 2025. That is almost 3 full years later. I think that's important to note because in my opinion, Cayson's case is more common. It's like a more common trajectory, right? Like there's a few continuances, specifically 2, and they went to trial on the 3rd trial setting, as opposed to Carmelo's case where they set 1 trial setting and they went to trial. I thought that was odd. But, here's the 2 differences so you guys can see and kind of compare and contrast exactly what I'm talking about, okay?
Well, the trial of Cayson Allison, the Belton High School student charged in the stabbing murder of his classmate, has been rescheduled. The trial was originally set for May 20th, but was delayed for parties to review potential evidence. 6 News anchor Bailey Bates is live in our studio tonight with the latest on this 2-year-old case. We won't know the outcome for a while now, Bailey.
Yeah, Lindsay, we know in today's hearing the judge, the prosecutor, and the defense attorney agreed to start the trial on January 13th of next year. That's that's when a Bell County jury will decide the fate for Cayson Allison. He's accused of stabbing and killing classmate Joe Ramirez in a Belton High bathroom on May 3rd, 2022. 2 years ago, 6 News obtained an arrest affidavit that said Ramirez was stabbed in the chest, back, legs, and arm. That affidavit also stated police obtained video that showed Allison stab Ramirez before the video abruptly comes to an end. According to online court records, we know that part of the reason trial has been delayed is for both the state and the defense to sort through and prepare potential evidence, including camera footage and several cell phones. A spectator in the courtroom at today's hearing tells me Cayson was present the first time in a while, and the defense attorney told the judge he had conflicts for much of the year, leaving the trial to not start until next year. Allison is out on bond, and we will keep you updated as we continue to follow this case, Lindsay. The trial of Cayson Allison is being delayed a third time, according to Bell County court records. Allison is facing murder charges for the death of his 18-year-old classmate, Jose Joe Ramirez Jr. The two allegedly got into a fight inside a school bathroom where Allison pulled a knife and stabbed Ramirez several times. The trial was set to begin January 13th. Now the trial is scheduled for March 31st. There is currently no word as to the reason for the additional delayment.
Another distinction that I will note for you guys is the fact that Karmelo's case lasted a few days. I think it was like 7 or 8, while Cayson's case lasted 2 full weeks. They went to trial for 2 full weeks. I think that's important because even though it seems like not that much time, like a difference, it kind of is, right? Because in those additional days, you know how many other witnesses you can put on, how much reasonable doubt as a defense attorney you can cast on the prosecution's case. There's just so much more that can be done. And I don't think Karmelo's attorneys did it for him. Let's stop. Because you guys are probably thinking to yourselves, well, Desiree, after the last video or in the last video, you told us that after reading the definitions of the crimes in Karmelo Anthony's case, you could see how the jury convicted him of that crime. That still remains true. But what I am saying here is, I think good defense attorneys not only work with what they have, but they exceed what they have. Okay? Does that make sense? Because in my mind, one of 2 things are true. 1, the jury in Karmelo's case got it right, which I can see. But 2, the jury in Cayson's case got it absolutely wrong, which I believe. I think they got it wrong. I think if Karmelo was convicted of murder, Cayson should have also been convicted of murder. Or the second thing, if Cayson was only convicted of what he was convicted of, which I'm going to tell you about in the end, then Karmelo should have been convicted of the same. Because in my opinion, the different circumstances surrounding the different cases make Cayson's case more aggravated. But let's go ahead and continue. Okay, now let's go back just a smidge. Because my understanding of all of this and why the 2 boys, had issues was because Joe confronted Cayson at a prom after party, specifically because Cayson was being rude or disrespectful to Joe's brother's girlfriend.
The prosecutor began in their opening statements revealing there is a recording of the incident. They also said that the conflict between Joe and Cayson began after an incident at a prom after party and that Joe swung at Cayson first, accompanied by 4 others in that bathroom. We're also learning more about what led to that May 3rd day. Multiple witnesses today shared that the tension between the 2 began at a prom after party at Allison's girlfriend's house. Last up for the day was Ramirez's brother. He testified that at a prom after party, Allison acted aggressive and inappropriate toward his prom date, which caused his brother to step in.
What I also think is really important to know is that facts differed on this next thing that I'm going to say. But some people said that at that prom after party, so completely unrelated to the day of the incident, Joe had a gun and threatened Cayson with a gun. But one of Cayson's own friends testified that, sure, there was a gun there at the prom after party and it was presented towards Cayson, but Joe didn't do it. Joe was not the one brandishing the weapon.
Another close friend of Allison returned to the stand today discussing text messages between the two of them, and those texts contained things like Allison saying, "Bro, bring me a gun," and discussion of Joe and their altercation at the prom after party. That friend said that the after party is where this all started, and that it was his understanding that Ramirez had pulled a gun on Allison at this party. A friend of Allison shared today that he saw someone pull a gun on Allison at the prom after party, but it was not Ramirez.
So after the prom after party, Joe and Cayson in a big group chat decided that they were just going to meet up and fight out their differences, right? And that was the plan. Why I think that is important to note, in my opinion, because it differs from Karmelo's case in there was no meeting between Karmelo and Austin, no planning, no preparation, no anything that would otherwise lead me to believe that this was a pre-planned or pre-scheduled event, as opposed to Joe and Cayson agreeing to meet up and fight.
Afterward, a Snapchat group was created where Allison shared with Ramirez plans to fight in the woods of West Temple Park. Next was a close friend of Allison who was supposed to fight alongside Allison in the planned fight off campus. He said that that fight was supposed to occur around 5 p.m. that day and take place in a 3-on-3 format.
Next, I'll note to you guys that during testimony, one of Cayson Allison's friends testified that he was aware that Cayson had brought a knife to school on the morning of the incident, so the morning of May 3rd of 2022. He wasn't aware if he heard that information just from other people or if Cayson told him that information as well.
Last up for the day was a friend of Allison who shared that he had heard from others that Allison had brought a knife to school that day, but was unsure if Allison had told him this personally.
Some reports also state that Joe Ramirez's ex-girlfriend, who also happened to be a friend of Cayson Allison, testified that Cayson had told her about some threats that he intended to be directed at Joe. Further, in Joe Ramirez's girlfriend's testimony, she said that Cayson told her specifically that he wanted Joe on life support and he wanted to stomp Joe's head in.
Next up was Ramirez's girlfriend, who said that Allison had told her personally that, quote, he wanted Joe on life support and wanted to stomp his head in.
Here's where things got a little bit funny, right? Because as I said, defense attorneys are supposed to work with what they're given, right? And good defense attorneys will argue as much reasonable doubt as they humanly can possibly muster to argue, okay? And one of the arguments made by Cayson's defense attorneys was that while they were in the restroom, Cayson and Joe locked the restroom door to enclose both of them inside of the restroom during the fight. But there was a detective who testified, dude, the door lock wasn't even working when this happened. So that was literally impossible.
Today, a Belton PD detective took the stand and showed evidence confirming that the lock on the bathroom door was not functioning from the inside. This comes after multiple claims from the defense that Ramirez had locked the door during the fight.
A detective even testified that Cayson told them that he took a knife from his stepdad's closet that morning, the morning of the incident, so May 3rd of 2022. Because according to him, he knew that if he saw Josh and Joe, that it was going to be a fight. Now let's go back, because I haven't explained this to you, but Josh Rios is actually Joe Ramirez's brother.
The investigation's primary detective, Gene Cole, testified next. He shared that Allison told him that he had taken the knife from his stepdad's closet that morning because he, quote, knew if he saw Josh and Joe in the bathroom, there was going to be a fight. The detective also detailed Belton PD's initial questioning of Allison, sharing that Allison told him he did not remember how many times he stabbed Joe.
It's really interesting because despite the detective's testimony, the video of the interrogation was played. And in that video, Cayson actually said that he brought the knife because he was scared of Josh and Joe. And he did it for his own safety and protection. But do you know what he also said that I found rather interesting? He told the detective that he told Joe before Joe even punched him, "Don't touch me or I'm going to stab you."
The full over an hour long video of detectives' initial questioning of Allison was shown to the jury today. The video shows Allison lying his head down on the desk and eventually lying on the ground and vomiting in a trash can. In the video, Allison revealed that he took the knife from his stepdad's closet that morning out of fear of being jumped by Ramirez, and also that before Ramirez had punched him, he had pulled the knife out and told Ramirez, quote, "Don't touch me or I'm going to stab you."
Let's stop right there and compare that to Carmelo Anthony's case. Okay? What I think was of note is the wording that Carmelo said to Austin before the stabbing occurred. He said something to the effect of, punch me and see what happens, or push me and see what happens, something like that. Obviously different wording, but it's very similar to the message that Cayson delivered to Joe before Joe ultimately punched him. So when it was time for defense's case in chief, defense put on numerous witnesses, but one of the witnesses was one of Cayson's friends who testified, yes, this was a pre-planned fight, but it was supposed to be 3-on-3, but that ultimately didn't come to fruition. You know what defense also did that I'm wondering how the court allowed was they were able to get someone to testify that Joe Ramirez had actually jumped this specific person in the past.
After that, a person testified that they had been jumped by Ramirez in the past.
And the reason I'm telling you like why the judge would even allow that is because I'm wondering why it's relevant. I guess to the self-defense portion of like who was the initial aggressor or whatever, or the fear that Cayson had or whatever. But in my mind, Joe Ramirez pushing someone else is not really relevant to this pre-planned fight that was supposed to be 3-on-3. Whatever, let's carry on. It's also my understanding that during defense's case in chief, they recalled Josh Rios so they can call him out on some inconsistencies that he made.
When Rios returned to the stand, the defense listed things that he failed to tell law enforcement the first time. Rios said that he was going through a lot of emotions when he was questioned by Spurgeon at the hospital and said his brother's life was the main thing on his mind at the time.
You know what else I thought was really fascinating was the fact that there was testimony that was allowed about the fact that Joe Ramirez was arrested at 18 years old for assault and his victim was 17. Because I'm trying to figure out why that's even relevant. Again, let's carry on.
Today, we learned Joe Ramirez had been previously arrested for assault when he was 18 and the victim was 17.
So at the conclusion of trial, and ultimately, the jury rejected murder and they rejected manslaughter and they convicted Cayson Allison of criminally negligent homicide. Let me explain to you guys what that means. Under Texas Penal Code Section 1905, a person commits an offense of criminally negligent homicide if he causes the death of an individual by criminal negligence. Under Texas Penal Code Section 6.03, subsection D, a person acts with criminal negligence or is criminally negligent with respect to circumstances surrounding his conduct or the result of his conduct when he ought to be aware of a substantial and unjustifiable risk that the circumstances exist or the result will occur. The risk must be of such a nature and degree that the failure to perceive it constitutes a gross deviation from the standard of care that an ordinary person would exercise under all the circumstances as viewed from the actor's standpoint. So normally, under Texas law, criminally negligent homicide is punishable by a range of 6 months to 2 years. That seems rather low, doesn't it? Okay, well, the prosecution here moved to amend and added a deadly weapon sentencing enhancer, which increased the range that Cayson was facing to up to 10 years. So 10 years was the maximum. And ultimately, the court did accept the enhancement and sentenced Cayson to 10 years.
After more than 2 weeks of trial, today a jury found former Belton High student Cayson Allison guilty of criminally negligent homicide.
It's the least severe charge he faced, as the jury found him not guilty of murder and manslaughter. We now go to 6 News reporter Sydney Walker live at the Bell County Justice Complex. Sydney, how was it today?
And the jury finally came back with their verdict today at about 10:45 a.m. This comes after they heard from over 20 witnesses, viewed, heard, saw all of the above, all sorts of evidence that led them to believe that Cayson Allison had acted criminally negligent, resulting in the death of Joe Ramirez almost 3 years ago today in that Belton High bathroom. Based on the verdict, the 12 members of the jury believed that the state proved beyond a reasonable doubt that Allison had acted criminally negligent, resulting in the death of Joe Ramirez. After Allison was found guilty, his defense attorney, Zach Boyd, asked the judge if Allison's ankle monitor could be removed. The state objected to this and asked Faulkner to find his bond insufficient. The judge denied both of these requests. Allison faces anywhere from 6 months to 2 years in prison, but we will have to wait until June 16th for that sentencing.
Cayson Allison has been sentenced to 10 years in prison for the death of a fellow student in 2022.
Allison was convicted in April of stabbing and killing fellow student Joe Ramirez, and today he received the maximum sentence for criminally negligent homicide. 6 News reporter Sydney Walker has been in the courtroom since day one and has more on today's sentencing.
After nearly 3 years of awaiting trial, 2 weeks of testimony, a sequestered jury, and a deadly weapon enhancement, Cayson Allison will spend the next decade behind bars. Allison was sentenced to confinement in an institutional division for 10 years. This came after 9 witnesses testified this morning, including the mothers of both victims, Allison's therapist, and former Belton ISD employees. All 3 school employees shared trauma from the event, bringing up a lack of sleep and increased anxiety on campus, with one citing the stabbing as her reason for retirement. Ramirez's aunt and sister both made it clear that they did not agree with the jury's verdict and don't think they've received justice. Joe's mom tearfully defended her son on the stand, saying she would absolutely not forgive Allison and that she has left it in, quote, God's hands for his vengeance. The defense called Allison's parents and counselor, all who pointed out growth in Allison and an overall remorse for his actions. In closing arguments, the defense argued that sending Allison to prison would be, quote, a death sentence. Meanwhile, the prosecution argued that 10 years is a just sentence and that at the end of the day, Ramirez's death was entirely avoidable. In the end, Faulkner sided with the prosecution, causing Joe's family to erupt in cheers following the reading of the sentencing. Allison has already been booked into the Bell County Jail and will begin his 10-year sentence today.
I wanted to talk to you guys about this case because in my opinion, this case and the Karmelo Anthony case are relatively similar. I think the biggest differences between this case and the Karmelo Anthony case are the fact that in my opinion, Cayson's case is a lot more aggravated. Not only did Cayson pre-plan this fight, Cayson had been making threats to numerous acquaintances about how he wanted to stomp Joe's head in and have Joe on life support. Cayson had told the detective that the morning of the fight, he grabbed the knife from his stepdad's closet, anticipating that he would have to stab Joe in a fight. Okay? And despite all of that, the jury rejected the contention that this was murder or even manslaughter and only convicted him of criminally negligent homicide. I think it holds true that I can foresee how the jury convicted Karmelo of murder based on the definition that we read. Okay? So that opinion of mine does not change. But I think if that is the case for Karmelo, Cayson should have similarly been convicted. I do not buy any self-defense claim on behalf of Cayson because all of this was pre-planned. Cayson planned to kill Joe. That's just what it is. I think that sometimes the media tries to pit us against one another and gives us these cases where we're supposed to feel anger and rage and take it out on whatever race it is of the perpetrator, right? Just because Cayson is white, I'm not mad at all white people, okay? But what I'm saying to you is, I think that Cayson's case should have gotten the same amount of media coverage. I think the victim in Cayson's case, Joe Ramirez, just because he was Hispanic doesn't mean he mattered any less than Austin Metcalf. I saw a lot of dissenters saying that this case was so distinguishable from Karmelo Anthony's case that the two cases should not be compared. And I could not disagree more. I think these cases are rather similar, but for the fact that I find Cayson's case to be rather more aggravated. They both happened in Texas. Both of the boys were teenagers at a high school. The stabbings happened at a high school. The fact that they were stabbings, all of this was the same. I don't see anyone questioning why Cayson had a knife in that event, the same way they're questioning why Karmelo had a knife. Let's be clear. Having a knife on the school campus was wrong. I don't see why it was there. But why is the question not the same for Cayson? Let's be honest. I wanted to share my opinions on this case with you guys because it is my opinion that if Karmelo got convicted of murder, Cayson should have also similarly been convicted. It's also my opinion that because Cayson's case was more aggravated, in my mind, Cayson should be serving 99 years. I think if we're comparing and contrasting the Karmelo Anthony case to the Cayson Allison case, it is unfair that Karmelo got sentenced to 35 years. I don't think that's fair. Some might even argue that the conviction is overall unfair if Cayson got convicted for criminally negligent homicide and not murder, right? So I just feel like we can't have it both ways. That is why I wanted to bring this case to your attention, because I just want to show you guys the differences amongst two relatively similar cases. But that is it for this video. Before I let you guys go, I just want to talk to you guys about some other things that I'm remembering, like in the comment section that you guys were talking about. A lot of you guys don't like the fact that I smile a lot, which is weird. Like, tómate un vasito de agua, cálmate, cálmate, relájate, mija. Like, it's just weird. Like, you don't like happy people. But the reason I smile so much, you guys, is because when you deal with stuff as tough as I deal with on a daily basis, if I don't smile and laugh and joke and play and be lighthearted, I'm going to lose my mind. Okay? So it's no offense to anyone involved. Hopefully you don't take offense to it. But if you do, this is probably just not the channel for you. Okay? Second, I also wanted to share with you guys. Do I want to share this with you guys? No, I might just keep that one to myself. But please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Tell me your thoughts on this case. And if you have a disagreement with me, feel free to express it, but please be respectful. Okay? As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Until next time, y'all take care.